or lycra little outfit. And for lipstick, we're going to use the Quick All to begin with, as you probably see on the chart there. Across there. Take our bone and we'll work over the hard surface on the board. And we're going to gently, we can add a few more drops and add the vacuum. You can see it starting to break up. At this point in time, when you remove it, you see that the dyes are here. So it's important that you move the towel or your absorptive substance, whatever you're using. Or we can go to our next product, which is the Lac-All. And so we'll use the Lac-All, which works very well in conjunction with the Quick All. The two of these together, vacuum and our steam. Add to this mix is our Pure-Sol. And Pure-Sol is just a solvent. Add a little bit of that to it. It helps to remove our stain. And again, then we can flush out over the end, and you can see the Pure-Sol really made it come out. And you can actually flush through with the Pure-Sol in that area, because it's a solvent. Use the air. If you get down to the end of the stain and you can't quite get it all the way out, you can also use the color sol to complete the action and heat up the color sol, and that will remove any remaining dyes. But I think this shows that it gets it out. Spandex is very stretchy, makes it very hard to get out, and a lot of you have asked me, can I show that? So here we are. Silk material, very sheer, and we're going to remove this lipstick stain on the silk. So as you see in your spotting chart, we're going to use the Quick All. Very gently, giving some mechanical action. And you can see that much of the dye just blows right through. So we'll move to an area that doesn't have so much dye in it. You can see that it's very much gone. You can actually flush through with the Quick All using the vacuum on the board and put a few drops just to flush right through. And I'm just going to blow through with air. Because it's silk, I'm holding the gun up fairly high. Dry. So we remove the stain. So what we have here is a spandex suit that we're going to use with some makeup on it. And so to remove this makeup, we're going to use a towel to be absorptive, and we're going to pull up just here to the middle of the board. Pure-Sol, and we're going to start this time with our Pure-Sol and just add a few drops on there. Motion there. We're not getting much effect with that, so go to our Lac-All. Much better effect with the Lac-All. And oftentimes we'll use the Quick All. And this is foundation. There's a little air. You can see it's flushing it right onto the towel. Again, we change to another part of the towel. So sometimes when you get down to this part and it's coming almost all the way out but not quite, you can use our color saw. Adding the color saw to remove the remaining pigments, and you just work it in. And then we're going to add a little bit of heat. Spray the steam away and use that heat to just heat up the color saw. You see with good effect, and we put it on the vacuum and flush it through. Using air now. Okay. So I'd like to show how we do blue ink on, this happens to be a plain swatch, cotton swatch. And so what we'll do is we'll move it to the hard surface. We'll put an absorptive material underneath it. We're going to use, first of all, our Quickall. Use a couple drops of Quickall. You can see it immediately starting to break up the stain. The ink comes out very easily. We're using a little bit of mechanical action, not very much, on here. A couple more drops. And now we're going to vacuum it onto the towel. While we're doing that, we'll add a little bit of steam. And you can see that the dye runs right down into the towel. Very little left on our swatch. So easily you can come back, use a little more Quickall, do a gentle massage. Again, flush through with steam and vacuum. Little air. And there we have the ink on. So we're going to also do blue ink on gold lame. This is actually a metal fiber. And in dealing with metals, you'd never want to use rust removers because obviously it'll oxidize the metal and cause it to break down or turn black. But on this, we have blue ink. Add just a little bit of our Quickall. We're going to rub very gently, and it's very important when working with gold lame that you rub very gently because you can actually leave lines. Now you can see almost the addition of the chemistry pulls the stain out. It's very, very easy to remove stains on this, providing you're not too aggressive with the gun. You can add just a little bit over the top, and it sucks it right through. And you're really dealing with metal here. So we're going to go ahead and flush with steam. Notice I'm staying up in the air with the steam gun. Add air. And we're flushing right underneath. You can see the blue ink coming right through the gold lame. So even if you have a garment that has the gold lame trim, you're able to get blue ink out of it and many other inks out of it. It moves fairly easily. You just need to be careful how you're using it. It's a Tommy Bahama style shirt. You'll notice that the inside there's no pigment. So if we turn the material over, it's all on the outside. Very easy for the colors to come off of these. Many of you have seen these, and they can be very dangerous. So we have some blue ink on here. So we're going to turn the shirt around where it's easy for us to get inside of it. We're going to use absorptive material, go underneath it. We're going to work over this part of the board. You can see the blue ink stain here. We're just going to use the same quick-all that we started with. A few drops here. Give it gentle mechanical action. Now it's always wise on this type of garment, because we know that the dyes can be very fugitive, to test this before you put chemistry on here for color fast. So you'll want to know that when you use the steam gun, that this garment can accept that steam and it's not going to blow the color all the way through. And the best means to test that is to pull back the fabric, test it in an unexposed place before you do this. So I'm going to bring it down just a little to the nozzle of the gun, turn on my vacuum, nozzle of the board, turn on my vacuum, and we're going to flex through very gently. I'm going to stop flushing now just to check my color. Well, certainly the blue is coming out, but we have no color coming out of the shirt. So I'm not concerned about that color any longer. I just want to get that dye away from it. And you can see that pretty much the blue is gone. We'll add just a little bit more of the quick-all, which does such a great job on blue ink, green ink, yellow highlighter, oil stains like from salad dressings. Very easy to get out on these type of things. Very gently action going here. Vacuum again. Steam. Flushing the stain through. Not necessary to do it more than we need to. Feather around the outside edges. I'll go to a dry spot in the towel. And you can see that our blue stain is gone. And we're good to go with no dye bleed on the back. So we have red and black plaid with whiteout on it. And whiteout is to be treated pretty much just like ink. So we'll pull it up here, spotting board, put our towel underneath in the same way. We're going to start this with lac-all. This is a heavy dose of the whiteout that we put on here. So it's very thick. I'm rubbing very, very gently. You can see it starting to break down. A little bit of Purasol is helpful sometimes with whiteout. And you can see it starting to break down. Oftentimes on this type of stain, when they're very hard, you're better off giving it a few seconds to just sit and work. So all we're really trying to do is flush this excess from the front to the back. You can see a little bit of the dye running with this. So we'll go to a different spot. And we're going to flush through with the Purasol. Vacuum. And we're essentially just dry cleaning right here on the end of the board, using the Purasol as our solvent. Again, you can also add quick-all, because on some types of whiteouts, particularly if they're moisture-based, then the quick-all is very helpful. These three work extremely well together. And again, you can simply flush right onto here, flush it out, bring your gun air dry. just like that, the whiteout's removed. So what we have here is black ink. Black ink sometimes is a little bit different. We're doing it on a plain swatch. And you can see so oftentimes the black ink turns to kind of a purple color. Oftentimes if you have an ink load, you'll see this kind of a purple coloring when it comes out. It still may be black ink and not blue ink. So what you'll want to do is just give it a little bit of mechanical action. Get something absorptive like this towel, and we'll just put a little bit more on there and try to absorb as much of the ink into the towel as we can. The less ink there is on the swatch, the easier it is for us to remove it. So use a little bit of mechanical action, and you can see it now looks blue, but it's really black ink. We use Lacquol. Lacquol, as you can see, is starting to move the dye, and certainly we can just simply wipe that off our table. You can apply some more of the Lacquol onto there. It works fairly well. See the ink still moving. There's a lot of pigment in black ink, and because of that, they're tiny, tiny particles. They really tend to get hidden inside the fibers. Once we get it through, again, I'm not flushing with steam yet. I will flush with a little bit of the chemistry through into the towel to try and get the ink through. Turn on your vacuum. Then you can use Purosol to flush your Lacquol out with. And do this on the dry side. Just like dry cleaning right here on the end of the board. Using our air, just flush it through. And when we're down to this point where we're pretty much the ink is gone, we just have a little bit of residue left. Now we can add in, with the Lacquol, we can add in our Quickol. And you can use Quickol with Lacquol at any time. They work very, very well together. And again, I'm rubbing very, very gently on this to remove the black ink. Now is at the point where you can actually add steam. Flush through with the steam. And flushing out the rings, and then going for the steam. And so we're removing the black ink. Obviously doing it on a piece of cotton swatch is much easier than it is doing it on a regular material, like if you're doing a blouse with that. This is just a silk swatch. You can clearly see the black ink stain running through here. I put it right on the yellow so it'd be easy to see. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to add just the Lacquol onto the silk. And you see that dye just running, the dye from the ink. Now if you've recently dry cleaned this garment, much of this may be gone and you're left with more of the concentrated dye and pigment. This still works exactly the same way. So we flush it down onto the towel, move to a place that's not contaminated, and do exactly the same thing again. It's very, very sheer silk fabric, so you have to be a little bit careful with how hard you rub. We're kind of down to the point now where even though we haven't added the Quickol, we could just flush. So we're going to add steam, we're going to add the vacuum, little air, but you can clearly see the black ink stain's gone. very easy on silk, and it's this way on silk blouses, on anything, providing it will take the chemistry. So what we have here is a khaki pant with lining on the inside, and we have motor oil on it. Pull this up on here. Move the lining up a little bit higher and get to the motor oil. We're just going to use Purosol to try and flush through the motor oil. So we use the vacuum. I'll do one little area here with the Purosol. And by itself you can see that the Purosol is flushing out the motor oil. Little air. And just that easily it's gone. Now you may find with the Solvex or Hydrate or V123 kit that you could just simply use the lavender bottle, which is the 1, and put that on the area that you want to work on, and it will flush out inside the machine, whether you're using dry cleaning or you're using laundry. And so you can use that. A little spray of our Polyspot afterwards before we throw it in the machine is very, very helpful in rinsing the remaining residue that's on there. So that's how you get motor oil out. So what we have here is wax. This is wax on a cotton napkin. Oftentimes you'll get these kind of things after the holidays, but it's just candle wax dripped down on top of there. So essentially what we'd like to do is try and get this out. You can also use our Lacol, which assists in helping to remove the dye that's inherent in the wax. Obviously wax is clear, but the dye that's on here is not. So we're going to do the same thing. Flush through. We're going to blot. Picking up a lot of that dye into there. At this point you might try and just add the Lacol and flush through with the gun, using mostly the heat from the gun and trying to flush it through to the back side. Notice I'm being very careful not to hit the fabric too hard. I'll turn on the vacuum so it's sucking it through. And obviously the heat is melting the wax, and we're trying to move it to another place. We're moving it here. You can finish off with a little bit of the Purosol, which is a solvent to help you remove the last remnants of the dye. And there you are. Chewing gum, just regular Trident chewing gum. It's been well chewed, and it's been placed on the napkin. You get this all the time. Sometimes you get it out of the dryer. You can simply use our Purosol. Use Purosol on the stain. It helps to lift it, and try and pry that up with your bone. And if you can catch it just right, you can actually lift it up. It's kind of smearing it too. The other way you can do it is you can add Purosol to the end of a cloth and simply brush it and pick that gum up onto the cloth. Okay, so now the gum's on the cloth. You'll still have a little left over in here, which you can vacuum. You can see it in there, and it'll just flush right through. This will chew that gum right up. If you still have a little trouble with it, you can see there's a little left over there. You can add a little bit of our lac-all. If you're using one of our 1, 2, 3 kits, the 1 is the bottle that you'd use for this before cleaning. So you can easily get out a gum stain, and there we are. Red nail polish on a swatch. I'm going to show you how to get it on the swatch, and then we'll also do it on a red silk. So nail polish generally comes out better with lac-all and Purosol, our dry side removers. We'll add a little bit of Purosol to wet the area. Start to break it down with our bone just a little bit. Add the lac-all. You can see it starting to break up. Notice I'm doing it on the hard surface part of the board. There's many different types of nail polishes, and oftentimes different products will help you in removing these. It's usually these two products or the addition of Quick-All, which can be helpful in removing it. We're going to add 2 drops there. And you can see the Quick-All basically lifts the dyes up and kind of holds them, suspends them, because it's a good lubricating agent. So we'll move here. We'll take our towel, wipe the area off, move on to here, and we're just going to add vacuum, and we're just going to flush with the chemistry right through. And just with all SEIZT products, they're rinsable with steam. So you can steam out the remainder of the area. This is what commonly happens when someone goes to a meeting. They get a nice name tag on, and you get some adhesive. This happens to be a silk blouse, a lot of decorative trim on it, which has really no bearing on this other than we have some adhesive on here. So we're going to peel the adhesive off. Notice I'm peeling at a 90-degree angle from the material to keep from tearing the material. And we're going to use our Purosol right here. And you can see that line coming around it. So we're basically just going to turn on the vacuum and flush through and remove that adhesive. Now on some solvents you'll be able to just dry clean it and most of that adhesive will go away. And other ones you'll have to do some more work on it like we're doing here. So typically the adhesive stain is just removed with Purosol, a bottle of Purosol. Oftentimes lac-all is necessary on adhesives. It works very well with that. These two work together very well. And on some moisture sensitive adhesives, the Quick-All also works very, very well. So that's what you use to help you with adhesives. Bear in mind that some of these type of fabrics, if you use POGs on them, can cause them to crack. And so you want to be careful with that. Always be careful of decorative trim. So what we have here is a gown. This is a satin gown. As you know, satin is a weave and not a fabric. So this is a satin gown which we have some oil stains on, vegetable oil stains, which typically are very hard to get out on satin. And so this is something I'm going to show you how to get out. Now if you were pre-spotting, you could simply use our #1 spotter out of our kits, whether you're using Hydrit or Solvex. Any one of those kits you can use this particular bottle on, pre-spot, and put it in the machine. Always in moderation with these. For our purposes, for post-spotting, we're going to lay down the towel. Let the weight of the gown drop underneath the spotting table. Come right up onto the towel here. And we're going to take some Purosol and attempt to get it out by using the vacuum and just the Purosol applied on here. Doesn't take a lot. Add air. And it's better if you move the towel slightly. And of course move over the vacuum itself. You can see it just basically sucking the solvent right through. So you can add some Purosol right over the towel here. If you don't want to have that splash, you can use your finger over it like this. Add your air. And you can see we have just a little, if I pull the towel down a little bit, we have just a little bit of the residue left on here. So this gives me an opportunity to show you a little bit about feathering with dry side chemistry. If you were going to dry clean, you could simply put this in the dry cleaning machine now and expect it to come out. Oftentimes using just a little bit of polyspot and a little misting action before you put it in the machine. If you don't wish to put it back in and you need to get this out, just put a little Purosol on here, and we're going to dry side feather by using the vacuum and just brushing from the inside to the outside while the vacuum's on. And this will remove most of that out of it. If you still have some on there, you can use, again, your solvent and feathering inside to the outside. Removing the oil stains, making it easier for you to get them out in the cleaning. So what we have is egg yolk, 8 whites on a cotton blouse knit. Which makes it a little harder. We're going to pull it up on here. We're going to work on the egg white first. And we're going to use that with our Frankisol. So we'll wet the area with steam. We're going to add Frankisol to that area. And Frankisol is a mild protein. It's very, very safe and works extremely well. We're going to pull up just a little bit here to where we're on the hard part of the surface, and we're going to use our brush and we're going to tamp, okay, onto this knit. We're going to use the softer of the two brushes, and so we're simply going to work it here. And this is just mechanical action is all we're adding, giving it a little bit of time to work. One thing that people do is they put on the chemistry and then they want to flush it right out immediately. You need at least 5 to 10 seconds for the agents to work. So we want it to break up that stain a little bit on the egg yolk. We're going to bring it here. We're going to use our towel underneath. And the towel is just a method to speed things up for you. And we're going to flush through. Now when you're doing knits, it's important as you flush that you grab the knit and pinch the knit together to take the pressure, the weight off of it. Otherwise, when you wet it, it'll stretch. So we're going to grab it like this, and it may make it harder for you to see what I'm doing, but steam. And again, this motion of holding it, having it on the towel, keeps it from stretching out the knit and creating problems for you. We just move to a dry part of the towel. And this is just the egg white. And again, we're going to take some of the pressure off, we'll vacuum, add air, and air dry this portion. I'm not going to dry it all the way, but you can see and you can clearly feel that the egg white is gone. Egg is very hard to get out of a lot of things because it binds around it and it's a protein. So now we have the egg yolk. Egg yolk is exactly the same whether it's the white or the yolk. It's a little easier to see the egg yolk. We're going to start off by wetting just a little. Wetting the area. Of course, using the Frankisol first because we know it's egg. If we were unsure as to what it was, we would probably use the Quickall first as a lubricant agent. But since we already know that it's egg yolk, we're going to tamp it. Again, the tamping is just mechanical action. That's all we're trying to do. We're neither rubbing or trying to whisk it off. We're simply tamping it. Every time I hit with the brush, the solvent, the product that we put on here, the agent goes down, hits the table, comes back up into the brush, inside the brush, and back down to the table again. This way we get a lot of mechanical action. It's kind of a gush, 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 gush. So we're going to attempt to get it out right now this way. If we felt like we needed more, we would use our blue towel, which is our protein remover, and we would add that. And you can use both of them right together. They're perfectly fine together. This is simply a mild version of this with a lot of surfactants in it. So again, we'll do a little tamping. So now we pull down our towel. Again, we want to protect the fibers. Take a little pressure off of it. Give it steam. You shouldn't have to worry about your hand because we're just looking for moisture, not heat. So you can see we've made quite a bit of progress on here with this. Sometimes when you have egg or any protein that's set for a long period of time, you may need to use our enzyme product, Liposol. Enzyme products really need to be neutral pH, so you need to flush very, very well before we put that on. And I will show later in our video here how to use this enzyme product on this particular egg to get out the rest of the way. I'm fairly certain this would come out just continuing on like this, but I want to save this for when we use the enzymes. So what we have here is our Tommy Bahama shirt, Tommy Bahama style shirt, where the dyes don't go all the way through. Of course, you'll want to test this to make sure that the dyes are compatible with moisture before you do this. But we have a blood stain on the collar. Oftentimes you get shaving stains. This is blood right here on the collar. So as long as we know that it'll take moisture, we'll be able to treat this. What we do with blood is we add a little bit of moisture right from the beginning. And we don't want the heat, we just want the moisture. A little bit of moisture on top of there. We'll add our Frankisol, which is the safest of our removers for protein. Just a couple drops on there. And we can tamp this. We have a nice little tamping brush here that we can use, and we can actually tamp with this brush. We can tamp with a larger brush as well, but we have a small area to work in here. So we're tamping with this brush, just creating mechanical action. You can look behind there to see if you have any dyes going, and obviously I'm working on the table, not where the holes are when I'm tamping. So again, just tamping right there like that. And you can see it's having a pretty good effect just with that on there. If I need more, I can use the blue towel The blue towel does a great job of continuing on where we were working to get out the blood. Now if your customer brings in these type of shirts soon after they've gotten the blood on it, it's obviously much easier to get it off. You may need to use a little hydrogen peroxide, just regular small amount, 5% hydrogen peroxide. You can add that to this and also use that to help you remove it. But we're actually doing very well with this, just as we are. Push the residue through. I'm not getting very close because I don't want to push the dyes through. You use some air, just dry it a little bit. Move to a dry spot on the towel. Now one thing to note, oftentimes when you see this light green, these light tans, the khaki colors or the olive colors in these type of shirts, they're very sensitive to colors. When you use an alkali, which is what's in the protein, so oftentimes you'll soften that color. It'll turn a little yellow or it'll get a little off. If that happens, you can neutralize that color change with a tannin. You simply put the tannin on in the same area, work it in the same way. And you should clean your brush before you do this. So you don't have any residue left in there. Tamp it in and give it time to work. And slowly it'll bring the color back for you if you've lost that color. Even if you've dry cleaned or wet cleaned this item and you've taken the color before and you've dry cleaned and wet cleaned it afterwards, you can still save the color by using this method. Alright, what we have here is some oxidized blood that's been on for a long time. Sometimes you have shirt laundry and the blood's been through several pressings. Customer forgot to tell you about them. So that's what this blood is for. When you have oxidized blood, this is the way that we're going to get it out. We're going to use our enzyme product called liposol. I'm going to show you how to do it. The first thing you'll do is get some used poly. Lay the poly down. We're going to wet the area with steam. And you don't want to get it too hot. Just want the moisture from the steam. Going to add the liposol, small amount onto there, and let the liposol kind of work it in. That's all you really have to do. After that, we're going to cover this with the same poly. And we're going to heat it with the gun. We're going to open our towel, we're going to take our garment, and we're going to place it in the towel. We're going to cover it, and then we're going to put it in a warm spot. If you place it all the way inside the towel, you can put it on the back of a still, on top of the machine. You can put it in the boiler room. Put it any place where it stays warm and consistent temperature for 20 to 40 minutes for this to work. Now, keys to remember with liposol. It's an enzyme, and so it has a shelf life. Ours has a very long shelf life, which works very, very well. But you simply put it on, it's clear, it's made from the remnants of making beer, so it's very, very easy for you to use. It digests, it's a digester. The same way that your food digests inside your stomach, this does to protein stains. So we use the enzymes in there to work and just let them sit in there and work. And they will change this old blood into something that we can actually get off with our other chemistry that's in here, or it'll take it out completely. So what we're going to do now is take this and put it aside and keep it warm and keep it moist. Enzymes must stay warm, They must stay moist. And that's the idea of using the plastic and the towel in a warm place. So this is our green blouse, still with the egg yolk on it. I'll show you how to use the Liposol in order to get the egg yolk out. And what we've done is we've flushed through any remnants of spotting agents that we had on before. And we do that to make sure that the pH is neutral in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this up on the hard surface. We're going to add our Liposol. Before we do, we're going to wet the area. It's actually still wet from before. We're going to use it so it warms it up just a little bit. We're going to add the Liposol down, and we're going to tamp that Liposol in. Then, in order to keep the Liposol enzyme product, we're going to use that to keep it moist and keep it warm. We're going to cover it with some poly. So I have poly underneath, I have poly on top. We're going to heat the area. And I don't want to get it too hot, I just want to keep it warm, about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So I keep it warm, and we're going to take the whole thing, we're going to place it inside of a towel. Like this, cover it with the towel, and now we can take it and sit it on top of a still or some other warm place in the plant, say in the boiler room, and keep it warm, keep it moist for 20 to 40 minutes while the enzymes work at breaking down the stains and digesting them. Okay. So now we're able to review, we've let this sit for a while, we're able to come back and review our Liposol and our egg. So we open up our plastic here, pull that out, and then we're going to spot just like we normally would. So we've worked with the egg and using the Liposol now. So now we're just going to use our normal stain removers. We're going to use our mild stain remover for protein stains, which is Frankisol. And we're just going to use a brush and tamp that area. Put a towel underneath. On the vacuum. Again, we're kind of holding the material so that as you can see, the enzymes have done their job to allow us to remove the egg on the knit. We're all set. So what we have here is our oxidized blood stain. We were able to keep it as moist and warm as I wanted to have it, so we'll add a little moisture to it. And we're going to come back with our Frankisol, which is very, very safe, and put that on to help us remove the last remnants of the blood. See how much easier the blood comes out. So you can imagine doing this on silk or wool, where you have to worry a little bit more about alkalinity on the fabric. Much easier to get it out in this way. Simply the Frankisol, and we'll flush here with steam air. Steam air. I think you can see the stain, just like that's pretty much gone. Okay, so here we have a silk swatch. It's actually silk material. And we have an old red wine stain on here. This happens to be a Pinot Noir. And so what we're going to do in order to take out this stain or help remove this stain, we're going to add a little bit of moisture to start out with. And you can clearly see it's got some red wine on there. We're going to add our yellow bottle, which is Francosol. We're going to add a little bit of Francosol, a couple drops, to give us a little lubricant and surfactants in there to help us work. And we're going to tamp this in. And rather than tamping it, even though this is a pretty soft brush, we're going to tamp it in with the cloth-covered brush. So the cloth-covered brush will simply wet a little bit before we start, and then let's go ahead and tamp. So as you can see, with the continued tamping, we're kind of getting down to the point where we're just getting that hard edge that's remaining on the red wine stain. At this point, you can add a little bit of heat to improve the effectiveness of the chemistry. Again, this is a 6-month-old Pinot Noir on silk. If you're still having trouble getting it out, bring it over now and flush it out. We can go to bleach, or we can go to our color salt. In essence, you can see that we're down to just a very, very small amount left over inside of there. So now we can go with color sol to get the last remnants of the dye left over from the wine. Or we could go with our Blankotex bleach. And we'll try them both. The color sol on silk is very safe on this color silk. And color sol is dependent upon adding heat. So add a little bit of heat. And I am getting close, but I'm only getting close with a whisper from the gun. So I'm not actually spraying. You see the color salt's having a good effect as far as removing that hard outside ring. And when you're ready, you can flush. Using a little air. There we have it. Here we have red wine on white linen lined material. We're going to use a little bit of moisture first. Add a little Francosol. Add some lubricating to it. And we're going to tamp, in this case with a soft brush. And we'll briefly rinse out as much wine as we can using this vacuum and steam gun. Now we'll come back, and now we'll go to our tannin Cavasol. The Cavasol will help us to remove the remaining wine stain. Again, we'll just tamp. You could also use the bone, but all we're looking for is mechanical action. Again, this is white linen, the lining behind it. We're going to add a little bit of heat to help it and assist the tannin to pick up a little bit more. Now, at this point, we have two options. One, we can use our bleach, a little bit of our Blankotex bleach, or we can try a little bit of our color sol. In this case, we're going to use color sol, but before we do, we're going to rinse. Now, this is a good opportunity for me to show you that the lining on this is acetate. Acetate is a problem with color sol. It could be a problem. So we want to get rid of that acetate lining, pull it out of there, get underneath it before we work on this. And now we're going to go ahead and use our color sol. Color sol works the best when it's heated. We're going to add a little bit of heat to it. And the white stain is gone. This is a black cotton velvet vest. A lot of people are afraid to work on velvet, so I'm just going to show you some foundation. Put on black velvet. Black velvet is basically a plain weave on the back side. You think of a plain weave as being my fingers crossed like this. This is a plain weave, and the fibers coming up and through like this, and that's your black velvet. What they do then is they basically cut off those fibers, and that gives you the fuzzies that's on this side. If you push too hard, what happens is those fibers push all the way through, and you'll leave a mark. So you want to be careful how you do this. So we have some makeup on here, and we're going to remove this on the black velvet. So we're just going to treat it like anything else. We're going to put a little bit of our Purasol on here to try and lift, just like we would on anything, the makeup, and we're just going to try and flush it through to see how this works. Well, it works a little bit, but not really well. So we come back with our other makeup mover, which is Lacquer. We put the Lacquer on, and we'll work it here over the hard surface of the board. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a soft brush, and we're going to gently tamp this area. We can also use the bone and again gently rub it. You can see that works very, very well. So if we were to remove this, we put the Lacquer on, gently rub, and you can see it has no effect on the velvet. The velvet's just fine. I'm just going to take out this one part so that you can see how it comes out. Now in order to flush, we'll put a towel underneath to help protect the velvet and capture the makeup. We're going to go ahead and we're going to steam. We're going to steam straight through. You could also use the Purasol. You could use the Purasol and just flush through and dry clean right here on the board, which as you can see works very, very well. Take some air, and when we put the air down, we're not going to get too close. We're going to come way back up with the air gun. And just simply flush that chemistry right down into the towel. You can see the makeup right there. It's been pushed all the way through. The back of the backing is fine, and the velvet itself is just fine. You don't see any lines or marks in the velvet. Okay, so if I was to do the rest of it, you can do it right over the towel if you'd like to. Just slide it back. The towel will then absorb the excess. We're just using Lacquer, which works very well on this. gentle motion with the bone. By gentle, I'm just barely touching it. Just enough to give us action here. If you have a larger area, you can go right to the larger area and do that as well. Now we're going to do it with steam. We're going to flush through with steam in the same way. Again, the steam, I'm not going to get too close. I'm going to lift way up, put on the vacuum, add the steam way up in the air so it doesn't cause any damage. If you're not careful and you get too close with the steam gun, you're going to push the fibers. The fibers look just like this towel. It'll push the fibers clear through. We don't want that. So we're going to just flush through with the vacuum on, add air, and air dry it, using a circular motion from way up in the air. Just a little bit there. You can see I missed a little bit here. I didn't quite catch it all. So I simply add the lacquer in. It's wonderful to be able to use a POG with moisture and not have to worry about having problems with it rinsing out. As you can see, it comes out beautiful. No damage at all to it. The back's fine. We need to dry out the remainder of the back. That's really it. You can see where all that makeup is. It's here in the towel. What we have here is a white cotton blouse that has chicken gravy on it. It happens to come from KFC. So what we're going to do is use a towel underneath it. We're just going to try rinsing it with the steam gun a little bit. Wetting the area. And we're going to bring it over to the hard part of the board. And we're going to put a little bit of our Quick-All on. You'll see this in the chart that we try starting everything out with Quick-All. Quick-All, a little tamping. Quick-All removes the oils, so anything that has any type of oil in it, all your vegetable sauces and things like that have oils in it. Then we're going to use our yellow bottle, which is the Frankosol. Frankosol will help you break up gravies, any kind of sauces, green chili, red chili. It does a great job with that. So we're going to tamp that. And we'll work it a little bit with the bone. And you can just see that stain breaking apart and coming apart right before your eyes. This is without even going after anything else. So I think you can see very easily that this is coming out with only the blue bottle and the yellow bottle, the Quick-All and the Frankosol. Just like it shows on the chart, so many stains come out with these things and they work beautifully together. So we'll come up here, we'll take a dry spot on the towel, and we'll simply flush this area out. Now obviously if you're cleaning with water, we wouldn't go to the extent of flushing all this all the way out. We just go ahead and put it in the water. If we're dry cleaning, then we would just simply flush it out and then put it in with the dry cleaning. So this is really all that you have to do. Okay, I get asked this a lot. Water rings on, this happens to be a satin dress, and how to get that hard edge that develops from the migration of sizings in soil and dyes out to the outside edges, where you get that. So we have a ring. And essentially what you want to do is take a towel, put it underneath. You want a dry towel. Put it underneath. For a small area like this, you're going to turn on the vacuum. Add a little bit of air. And work your way around the outside edge. Okay? Work from the outside, staying well outside the outside, and work your way to the inside. Okay? So when we dry, we start on the outside, working our way in. When we wet, we start from the inside, working our way to the outside. So that's what we're going to do now. You go ahead and hit the air, turn on the vacuum. I do a little zigzag motion, if you notice, as I go around that outside. Going to the inside, and as I get to the middle, I just lift it up. You can see that ring is all gone. When you need to spot and take out the ring, oftentimes you need to wet it first. So to wetting, we start on the inside and work our way to the outside. Sometimes you get a ring that's too big, and so you need to feather that outside edge. So what we do is we make this big ring into something smaller, about this size, and work on each little area first, and then feather it all back in. So that's what I'm going to do, is wet it first from the inside out. I'm still working over the towel. A little bit of vacuum on. By using the vacuum and working over the towel, I get less moisture on the garment. Okay, now I have a big ring to work with. I'm going to start my air, turn on my vacuum, start working toward this on this outside edge. Move it up over the vacuum's here in the middle. You start drying small areas, working my way in. Moving it across the table, gently and evenly. I'm pulling on the towel, not the brush. Working my way in, working around the outside edge. Notice my gun stays completely horizontal as I'm doing this, and never turn to one side or the other. Working in from the outside to the inside. Don't stop too early. Big old circle, working your way in, and lift up as you come off. And when you're done, no ring. This is a heavily sized satin dress, which most of you have had to work with, and you know the kind of rings you can get on this. So this is the way that you feather. Okay, what we have here is yellow mustard, the dreaded yellow mustard. I have it on a cotton muslin swatch. First thing you do is, you notice tamping. So we do tamping, but what we do is we're going to smack this, providing the fabric will take it. We're going to give it a smack, and then we're going to flick the excess away. So smack it a couple of times, and when we flick, we're going to use this type of a motion. Take the brush, turn it up on one edge, and simply go in one direction, flipping it off to the side. We want to rub off any excess that we can get off of it. I'm not scrubbing, I'm not rubbing like this, I'm simply turning it up on edge and flipping it. Okay? This is providing the fabric will take that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to wet it. And we're going to add some Quickall, or neutral lubricant, neutral synthetic detergent. And we're going to start working on that spot with this same brush. You'll start to see that mustard start breaking up and pulling away. And by the way, while I'm here, I'll just show you. You see the yellow on the brush? Just put the vacuum on, and you can flush the brush clean right there. So we can also use the bone in this area. See a lot of number 11 yellow dye in yellow mustard. So you add a little bit of Frankisol. And Frankisol will help us by making the fabric a little bit slick, lubricating the fabric so the stain is easier to get off and so it doesn't spread quite so easily. Then we're going to add our tannin. So our tannin Cavasol. And we'll work the area with the Cavasol. So what we've done is we've added a little bit of our Blankotex bleach. We've wet the area, we've added a little Blankotex on top of there. We're heating it up. This is to get the mustard out. Again, it's the heat mixed in with the moisture. Blankotex has a lot of oxygen to offer, which helps us bleach away stains. And this is just the last remnants of the yellow dye. On most things it won't require this, but if you had to bleach, we wanted to be able to show you how to use the Blankotex to remove those kind of stains. And the heat just speeds up the process. And there you are from the yellow mustard stain to no stain at all. Just adding a little bit of bleach to finish it off. So this is stain removal using agents that will remove, this is salsa sauce. Salsa is much like many of the other types of sauces you might get. Steak sauce is a lot along the same lines, soy sauce is along the same lines, so this is a good one to show you. So essentially we have the salsa, we're going to hit it with the brush to brush off any excess that's on there. Again, we're going to flick by lifting up and lightly brushing this way. Only one direction, lightly brushing. We're going to come back, we're going to add a little bit of moisture. We're going to add our Quick-All. And we're going to tamp. You can see immediately, as with most gravies and most sauces, it starts breaking up the top. You can clearly see it starting to come apart. That doesn't mean the stain's gone by any means, but it certainly is a big help. So we start breaking it up with the Quick-All, which removes the oils. We add a little bit of the Frankisol to that same thing. You don't need a lot, just a few drops. Add it to it, spread it around, and I'm massaging with the back of the bone. That massaging action is just mechanical action, much like we'd use in the washer or the dry cleaning machine. Just gently massaging that out. Now we want to get rid of as much of this as we possibly can, so we're going to use the towel, bring it over to a dry place on the towel, and just flush through. Turn the vacuum, steam, flush. Notice I'm not getting too close to the fabric because I don't want to destroy the fabric. And SEIZT chemicals keep working, so we keep flushing. Sometimes we'll even move to a different spot because a lot of that will go inside there. But this one I think we're ready to go back and do a little bit more work back here on the board. So now we're way down from where we were. We're very happy with what results we've gotten so far, so we're going to add just a touch more. Same two chemicals, and go back to doing the same thing. A little tamping. It's just mechanical action, breaking down the same type of stain. You can also use the bone, gently massaging the back. Oftentimes spotters hurry too fast to take right over to the edge of the gun and flush everything out. The chemistry needs at least 10 seconds to work. We're now going to add our tannin because this sauce is a tannin. Any salsa has vegetables in it. Anything that grows from a plant is a tannin stain. And so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to tamp with that. Now, if it was a small area, you can use our tamping brush. Tamping brush is very nice to work on a small area. This happens to be bigger, and we probably use the normal brush. But this is the way that you do it. So we have the light colored in, the dark colored in for different types of items. Again, you can add just a little bit of heat, which brings on a little help in removing the stain. Bear in mind that some fabrics can't take this heat or the moisture, so you should be testing dyes before you put any chemical on. You're getting a pretty good effect here. So now we'll flush. If it's not quite all the way out, you can either add bleach or you can go back to right what you were doing and add a little bit more. We have some gold lame here. This is actually a foil, and this is on a lot of materials and decorative trims. We have mascara, which is just up for the eyes, makeup for the eyes. We're going to use our lac-all and just put the lac-all, a few drops right on there. Very gently use our bone. I'm not rubbing very hard because if I do, I can make marks on the metal. It's just like rubbing into soft metal. So we're using the lac-all to get the mascara out. Some mascaras do not perform well for different types of things, so we're going to try the quick-all on there. And the quick-all seems to really be breaking it down, or the two of them in combination, really breaking it down there. We'll pull our towel up, and we'll go ahead and flush through with the volatile dry solvent Purosol. And we're just basically dry cleaning here on the end of the board, flushing those chemicals through. Little air. And you can see, if you look very carefully, that the gold foil, the lame, is in perfect condition. There's no damages to it. But we've removed the mascara. Completely gone. Just a little bit of work on some fabrics that are unusual that we need to do. And so what we have here is we have some lace. And this has some blue ink on it. You can see the blue ink running along there. And I just want to talk a little bit about how to treat the lace. You can see how fine the knit is in the lacing. So you have to be careful with these kind of things when you work on it. It's best to work on it over a towel to help prevent any damage to the lace. It's also good to lift up the weight of the gown and place it underneath there. So we're going to go with the same thing. We're going to go with our quick-all, which removes ink. Put it right on there. You can see it removing the ink right away. It's going right under the towel. You can see how quickly it goes. Move to a different spot. Again, we're being just a little more gentle with it, trying to protect the lace. The chemistry goes on there. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to flush this, but we're going to lift way up, so we're using very little pressure from the moisture to flush it. Turn on the vacuum. Now, using this height, you don't have to worry about the heat on the back of your hand. You don't have to worry about it on the dress. Flush it through. Give it a little bit of air in the same motion. Move to a dry spot on the towel. and dry your lace fabric, whether it's this or a tablecloth or whatever. Dry it very gently from up high, being very careful not to get too close to protect the fabric. You can see where the glue influences this area here. And you notice when I move this, I'm moving the towel to help move the dress around so the stress is not on the dress. A little bit more right here. Just air dry this. Way up in the air. And boom. All the ink's gone. No damage at all to the lace. This is important. What we have here is a khaki pant with the normal grease marks from the keys left in the pocket, people brushing up against their automobile. This is taken right off of an automobile. So what we're going to use is the Purasol, our VDS, put the vacuum on, and just basically put some of that on there, see if we can get it to flush through. If it doesn't come all the way out, pull it up here onto the board, add a little bit of our Lacol, which is a paint, oil, and grease. Very gently give it a little rub. And I do mean gently. To get it to come out. And this is lined underneath. So you do have a lining underneath there. You have to be aware of that lining when you're working with products here. Vacuum on. We're going to flush through with the VDS. We're going to air dry. Trying to work from the outside to the inside. When you get like this, you just take the towel, add a little bit of Purasol onto the towel, and you can turn on the air and just simply feather from the inside to the outside to take away that ring. Alright, we have red silk here, red silk blouse. We have nail polish on it, and so we're going to remove the nail polish on the red silk. So what we're going to start with is a little bit of our Purasol. We've already tested, as we showed previously, the blouse to make sure it'll accept the Purasol. And we're starting off pretty much just letting it set for a second to see if the Purasol will break down this, and not so much. We're going to add the Lacol, which is paint, oil, and grease. And the Lacol really helps. Again, when I'm rubbing very, very gently. You could use a soft brush on this. All I'm trying to do is really get it to break down and turn back into something we can easily rinse out. So we'll add a little bit more Lacol. You can see as I peel it back, I'm not really getting any red color. I'm not having to worry about color being a problem. And a little bit more of the Purasol to solve it. Notice I'm doing it on the table and not on the vacuum. This is a very thick area, so it's a little bit harder to rinse, but we've broken it down now. Without a lot of rubbing, we've broken it down. Pull it back over here. We'll add the vacuum. And we're going to go ahead and flush through with the Purasol. We're going to use air. see what kind of result we have here. We're using our vacuum to help lift the moisture out. Okay, you can see now that we've dried it out. We've still got a little bit of the nail polish left inside of there. So we need to get the remainder of that nail polish out. It was moving very, very well with the Purosol, so we're going to put that on. We're actually going to flush through with the Purosol. Give it a little bit of a lac-all. And we'll go ahead and rub as long as we're on the towel. I wouldn't rub if I was just on the holes underneath here, but since we're on the towel, I'm able to give it a gentle massage. Again, we'll flush through with the Purosol. You want to keep that spillage from happening, put your finger over the end and do it this way. There we are. Now we'll go ahead and add steam. We're going to flush so we can take out the ring. And we'll change the towel's position, make it a little bit easier for us to dry it. Probably saw just a mild amount of dye on the towel. You're going to get a little bit sometimes. As long as it's not damaging the color on the blouse, we're okay. Now we have all the nail polish is gone without any damage to the color. We just have the ring around. So for that ring, what we'll do is we'll take our poly spot. Just before cleaning, we'll spray it with the poly spot and throw it in the machine. So this is a Vera Wang blouse, black and white combination. What we have is a cuff with butter on it. Probably see the butter. So in removing butter, we're going to use our quick awl, just like you have in the book. Put our finger over it so we don't spray it all over everywhere. Work it very gently. Because we know it's better, go right to our Francosol, which is great for dairy products. It's a very mild protein. We're not really concerned about the color on this blouse, even though it's very delicate, because these are so mild of agents. And we'll work them very gently. We'll take our towel and move it up here, wipe off the area. Find a dry spot on there. Pull that cuff back up. And we're going to flush with steam. Put it in the vacuum. Obviously in cuffs there's double the thickness. Move to a dry spot. Start at one side and we're going to start air drying. As you can see, as you're air drying this, pretty much then all that stain's gone. It looks very nice. No problem with the colors on the Vera Wang.